Hi guys, how are things? I'm teacher Balaram Oviedo from LE de Español, and we are here in our Spanish basic course, the A1 level, in our lesson number 9, the irregular verbs in the present tense. Remember that we studied in our lesson 8 the regular verbs, only the regular. Today we are going to study the irregular verbs, right? And we are going to check our main objectives for today's lesson, to learn how to conjugate the regular verbs in the present tense, to describe actions and activities in general. But before going ahead, remember that we had a homework in the previous lesson. What you needed to do was to conjugate the verbs in brackets in the correct form. So here we have the answers. Pedro trabaja de lunes a viernes hasta las 6 de la tarde. Mi esposa y yo estudiamos inglés por la noche. Las hermanas de Miguel viajan cada año a Italia a ver a sus papás. El profesor de Mario enseña muy bien las matemáticas. Los estudiantes tratan de entender qué dice el profesor. Diana canta cuando está en la ducha. For our second exercise, we need to write a verb to make sense to the phrase. For example, todos los días yo llamo por teléfono a mi mamá por las noches. Ella vive en Buenos Aires y yo en este momento estoy viviendo en Canadá porque tengo una beca para estudiar inglés por un año. Mi mamá, mi papá y mi hermano menor viven juntos. Él estudia en la escuela primaria y actualmente está en 4º grado. Mi hermano mayor vive en Mendoza y trabaja en una multinacional de alimentos. Él es supervisor de planta. Él va o viaja a Buenos Aires para visitar a nuestros papás y hermano al fin de cada año y para pasar la Navidad. Yo espero estar con ellos el próximo año para disfrutar juntos en familia y hablar de todas mis experiencias aquí en Canadá. And for the last, in the point number 3, you need to organize the words in the right order to make sentences. So, for example, here, mi hermano y yo no vivimos en la misma casa, pero sí en el mismo barrio. Marta y Carla son amigas desde hace 5 años. Rubén y su esposa viajan a Europa una vez al año. Mi hermano tiene un buen trabajo en una gran empresa. So we will go ahead with our topic for today, the irregular verbs. We can say here that in the irregular verbs, the change takes place in the root of the verb. For example, yo puedo hablar 3 idiomas. Here we have the irregular verb that is poder, and it changes the vowel O into UE. Or here, quiero aprender a hablar bien el español. We have the verb querer, and it changes the vowel from E into IE. And then we have el diccionario sirve para buscar el significado de las palabras. The irregular verb is servir or sirve, and we have here the change from the vowel E into I. Okay? Now we are going to classify the irregular verbs in different groups. For example, we can say that in the group number 1, we can put the verbs changing from E into IE. These verbs can finish in ar, er, or ir. In this category, we have verbs like pensar, querer, sentir, perder, despertar. We have here 3 examples. One finishing ar, pensar, one finishing er, querer, and one finishing ir, sentir. So the vowel E changes into IE, pienso, piensas, piensa, but not in the nosotros and vosotros subjects. It changes again in ellos, ellas, ustedes, piensan. The same with the rest of the verbs. Quiero, quieres, quiere, not in nosotros and vosotros, and again in ellos, ellas, ustedes. This is the first group. Now we will go with the second, that is verbs with change of vowel O into UE. They also can finish in ar, er, or ir, the verbs. In this group we have verbs like volar, soñar, poder, volver, morir, and dormir. We only have one verb, that is jugar, okay? It doesn't change from O to UE, but from U to UE, only this verb, jugar, okay? And we have here the examples, also one finishing R, another in er, another in ir. Yo vuelo, tú vuelas, él y usted vuela, but here nosotros and vosotros do not present any change. Ellos, ellas, ustedes also or have the change O into UE. The same with this verb poder and dormir. Number 3, verbs with change of vowel E into I. In this group we have verbs like pedir, servir, competir, despedir or despedirse. Only despedir is like to fire, no? To fire someone from the job. Despedirse is to say goodbye. Repetir. Now we have here 3 examples from pedir. It changes the E into I. Yo pido, tú pides, él pide. Not in nosotros and vosotros. It doesn't change. The same here for servir and also for repetir. Okay. Verbs that change only in the first person of the singular yo. For example, verbs finishing ser and sir. This is the 4th group. In this group, we have verbs like conocer, pertenecer, conducir, producir, and reducir. 2 examples, one finishing ser. Yo conozco, only this, ZC. The rest of the subjects are the same, or the regular conjugation. And one verb finished in sir, produzco, ZC. The rest of the subjects with the normal conjugation. Here we have in the 5th group, these verbs also change only in the subject yo. For example, caer, salir, hacer, poner, traer, saber, ver. Only here in the first person. Yo caigo, yo salgo, yo hago, yo pongo, yo traigo, yo sé, yo veo. The rest of the subjects have a normal or regular conjugation. And here, verbs with double change, which means, for example, that in this group we have verbs like tener, venir, oír y decir, which means that here in the first person or in the first object we have the change like tengo, vengo, oigo, digo, but here we have another change, another irregularity. Tú tienes, él tiene, and in nosotros and vosotros they do not change. They change again in ellos, ellas, ustedes, tienen, or vienen, or oyen, or dicen, no? Here, remember that this sound is oyes, okay? So we don't say oyes with the E, but oyes. Oye, here we don't have the irregularity, and then it changes to oyen. Number 7, verbs finished in huir. The verbs finished in huir, we have this in this category, the change from I to Y. And we have verbs like incluir, construir, contribuir, and huir. For example, yo incluyo. The irregularity is that you don't say with the I, yo incluyo, but it changes to Y incluyo. Incluyes, incluye, not here again in nosotros and vosotros, it doesn't change. It changes again in the 3rd person of the plural, incluyen, or here, construyo, construyes, construye, and then, for the last person, construyen, the 3rd person of the plural. Other irregularities that we have here, we have verbs like ir, dar, oler, ser, and estar. Remember that ser and estar, we have a big differences in Spanish. In English is the verb to be, but we have the differentiation between ser and estar. We studied these differences in a previous video, right? And now we have verbs with the change J or G into J in the first person yo. We have these verbs, for example, escoger, recoger, elegir, fingir. Why do we have this change of letter, the G into J? Because if we had here the G, it will be yo escogo, and escogo is not a word or is not valid, or yo recogo, yo eligo, or yo fingo. So to have this sound escojo, we have to put the J, no? In order to have yo escojo, yo recojo, yo elijo, or yo finjo. But the rest, we have the normal G, okay? This is only in the first person. Now, that said, we are going to do the homework for our next lesson. What you have to do here is to put the verbs in brackets in the correct form of the present tense, and in the point number 2 you have to fill in the blanks with the verbs that make sense to each phrase. So we don't have here any verb in brackets. You are going to think about the verb that makes sense to the phrase, right? Well guys, congratulations and thank you for watching the video, and I hope that you have learned about the irregular verbs in Spanish, and see you in the class number 10. Remember that you can subscribe to the channel, give a like if you like the video, and we will study muy and mucho in our next lesson, ¿vale? Muchas gracias por todo, gracias por ver el video y nos vemos pronto en el video número 10, ¿vale? Chao, gracias, adiós.